welcome into the College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast. I am Brandon Jadich. I am your host. We just had the Super Bowl. It is Super Bowl weekend, and more importantly, that means football season is over. It's time for March Madness season. It is officially college basketball's time as the main sport in the United States. Congrats to the Chiefs, but I could not be happier that it is time that everyone starts preparing for March Madness in the greatest sport in our country. Thanks to all the regulars who are tuning in today, making us your first choice and getting your college basketball content. Thanks to the new folks who are joining us for the first time, trying to cram in their college basketball knowledge before March is upon us and you got to fill out a bracket and try not to panic. If you're new here, please give us a like and subscribe, whether that's on video or audio, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, whatever you want, so you can stay updated on everything in the college basketball world. We got a lot to talk about today. We had a lot of key games this past weekend. Specifically Saturday. Sunday was for the Super Bowl. We get that. Then we're going to talk about a few of the games on Monday night. We just had Big Monday. But we're going to go over some of these results, then go in depth, some of the standings, and most of the power conferences to see where they stand right now. We started a new trend on Instagram and Twitter where we release rankings every single day, every day that they have games, I should say. We base our rankings on seed line first, resume, which goes in hand with seed line, and then the teams that are trending. So, for example, we had Kansas as a 2 seed, but we had them as our worst 2 seed, even though that might not be the case for seeding purposes. But we rank it based on that. Teams that are trending, just like St. Mary's, we do have them ranked 21st in our ranking. So you think that would probably make them a 5 or 6 seed. That's not the case. They'll probably be an 8 or 9 seed as of right now. But that's just how we kind of do some things on our rankings. Go check those out. It's Bracket Science, 2 S's on Twitter and Instagram. Bracket Science with 2 S's. We're going to talk about some of those rankings. Things obviously changed last night, but we're going to talk about some of that with along with discussing the AP poll that was released yesterday. We know how horrible the AP poll is. We'll talk about some of their mistakes. Why is Kentucky still ranked? We'll talk about those. Then finally, we're going to talk about our Sweet 16 games to know for this upcoming week of college hoops. The KenPom lines are out. They're always out. The FanDuel lines are not yet out. So we'll give you a little head start on some betting advice so you can get those thoughts in your head. Thanks again for listening. While you're here, give us a like and a review. Comment your thoughts. Let's dive right into it. Let's start off Tuesday with a little bit of Trivia Tuesday, something new we're going to be incorporating here. The answer will be revealed at the end of the show after we get through all the content. The question is very basic. 7 teams so far this year have reached 22 wins. Can you name them? The hint I will give you, there is only 2 power conference teams. 7 teams have reached 22 wins this year. Can you name them? 2 power conference teams. So keep that thought in mind. We'll go over the answer at the end, see how many you can come up with. So let's dive into some of the results. So let's go in order of KenPom ranks all the conferences in order. If you don't have a KenPom membership, I'll go over them for you. The best conferences in order of college basketball this year go the Big 12, no surprise, the Big East, SEC, Big 10, ACC, Pac-12, Mountain West, A10, and then the American. So we're just going to go in order of these KenPom rankings of the conferences, discussing some of the results. So let's start in the Big 12, and let's start with the biggest game of the day on Saturday, where College Game Day was. It was number 13 Baylor visiting number 4 Kansas. Obviously, Kansas just played last night. We'll talk about that. But first, we got to talk about this game where Kansas did win the game 64-61. They were without Kevin McCullough for this was his first game that he missed. DeJuan Harris also got hurt late in the game. He injured his ankle, came back. He ended up hitting a huge floater, which put Kansas up 5 and just kind of put it away. It was actually a good look at the end for Baylor. Kansas decided to not foul, and Nunn and Jacoby Walter had good looks, but they both missed. Couldn't have drew up a better play. Nick Timberlake started in place of McCullough. He also started on Monday in place of McCullough. Every other Kansas starter was in double figures outside of Nick Timberlake. Just kind of shows how they can really struggle when they lose even just one piece. Yves Missy did have 21 and 8 for Baylor. Baylor showed a lot of heart in this game. I was actually very impressed with Baylor. I've talked about Baylor being one of the more overrated teams, but I think they improved a lot. Love obviously Scott Drew. He does a great job over there. Thought they showed some heart, but this was a good win for Kansas even without Kevin McCullough. So let's move through these a little bit quickly. Number 5, Houston visited Cincinnati in a tough place to play, but they did win the game 67-62. Jawan Roberts was the story in this game for Houston. 20 points, 10 of 15 shooting. Good win for Houston. Cincinnati had a chance to kind of pick up that win that gets them in the NCAA tournament. They didn't do it. Still think they got a good chance, but we'll see going forward. TCU visited number 14, Iowa State. Iowa State won the game 71-59. Trey King led with 15 points. They held TCU to 22 points in the first half. Houston and Iowa State, two teams we are just recently talking about, they may have the two best defense, not just in the Big 12, but in the nation. They are holding opponents to unheard of numbers. I mean, 22 points in the first half. We've seen Houston do that to a couple teams this year. It's just week in and week out. These defenses are just too much to handle for teams, good teams such as TCU and Cincinnati. But Cincinnati actually shot the ball well, but Houston just they just do not allow more than 70 points. Very rarely do they. Side thing to note, Jamie Dixon, head coach of TCU, they talked about it a little bit on the broadcast. His dad did just pass away, so it's kind of rooting for TCU in this game. But thoughts for Jamie Dixon. He's a great guy, great coach, great family there. But a good win there for Iowa State. TCU should be just fine. I think they're losing a road game at Iowa State is not the worst thing in the world. Let's move on. Last game we're going to talk about on Saturday was Kansas State visiting number 21 BYU, where BYU beat them 72-66. This game was not as close as the score may tell you. It was a blowout the whole way. Kansas State kind of fought back at the end. Story I thought of this one was BYU had 30 bench points. Very impressive. 30 points off the bench, something that Kansas has really struggled with. So we talked about a lot in the show. Last game we'll talk about in the Big 12 was the game that happened last night on Monday, Big Monday, where number 6 now, Kansas, went into Texas Tech and just got drilled. 50-79, 29-point loss to an unranked team. Darian Williams transferred from Nevada to Texas Tech now, 30 points on 100% shooting. Incredible. 12 of 12, 4 of 4 from 3. Not only that, he also added 11 rebounds. This was one of the most monstrous performances I've ever seen. The story for Kansas was just not being able to score the ball. Hunter Dickinson, 5 points, 2 of 12 from the field. KJ Adams, 5 points, 1 of 10 from the field. Kansas shot just 33% from the field, 19% from 3. The leading scorers were Johnny Furphy and Nick Timberlake, who once again started in place of Kevin McCullough. Any game where they're your two leading scorers, you're probably not going to beat a Big 12 quality opponent, as unfortunate as that is. Nick Timberlake actually played better in this one, but yeah, they need Kevin McCullough desperately bad. It shows how vulnerable this team is if, God forbid, DeJuan Harris, Kevin McCullough, KJ Adams, or Hunter Dickinson were to miss a game for an injury, just as we saw here. They do not have the bench for someone to step in and make an impact. So Bill Self also did get ejected in this game. A couple questionable calls, a lot of frustrating down 29. Yeah, you just want to get out of there. Something to note, though, over the last couple of weeks, Bill Self, Kelvin Sampson, Scott Drew, they all lead the powerhouses in the Big 12, Kansas, Baylor, and Houston. They've all been ejected within the past couple of weeks. Kind of a trend going here where they've been a lot of talk about the Big 12 officiating. Just kind of doesn't look too great for the Big 12 if your three biggest brand coaches are all getting thrown out. It's kind of almost looks like a protesting sort of thing. So let's talk about where this leaves the standings at. In first place solely is Houston at 8-3. Iowa State is 7-3 in second, so they obviously have a chance to get even there with Houston and Iowa State. Texas Tech moves into third place with this win. They're now 7-4, with Iowa State being 7-3, Houston 8-3. Baylor and Kansas tied for fourth, different records. Baylor 6-4, Kansas 7-5, both 2 games back though, or 1.5 games back, excuse me. Then right below them in sixth place, Oklahoma and TCU are 6-5. And then BYU, Texas, Kansas State are all 5-6, with Cincinnati and UCF 4-6. Then West Virginia and OK State are just down at the bottom as well. So it's kind of Houston's to lose as of right now. Houston, the newcomer in the Big 12, may win their first year. We'll see if Iowa State has something to say about that. Let's move into the Big East. Number 19, Creighton. First game we're going to talk about visited Xavier. Creighton won the game 78-71, snapping their 2-game losing streak. Kind of a much needed win for Creighton's confidence in this one. Ryan Kalkbrenner went off 28 points on 12 of 14 shooting. Baylor Sharman added 16 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. In Creighton's 2 previous losses, something to note, they got production from Baylor Shireman, Trey Alexander, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Stephen Ashworth. They've gotten 0 points in their past 2 games from Mason Miller, who is their 5th starter. In this one, Mason Miller had a good game. He went 3 of 3 from the field, which was 3 of 3 from 3, actually. He had 9 points and Creighton won. Creighton snuck out a game, so it's kind of in the same boat as Kansas. They need that 5th guy really bad. And if they get production from that 5th guy, they can be as talented as anyone. 1 through 4, I'd put Creighton up against Kansas as maybe the best 1 through 4 in the nation. Baylor Shireman is great. Baylor Shireman will be playing in the NBA one day. Ryan Kalkbrenner, they started playing through Kalkbrenner more, which I think has actually made them a better team. They just haven't figured out how to win like that yet. I think it'll be better for them going forward. But and Trey Alexander will also be in the NBA one day. This team's got a lot of talent. If they had a little bit of depth, this was one of my picks to make the Final Four. Previous in the preseason might not happen, but they still got a lot of talent. So we'll see how they do going forward. Let's move on. St. John's visited number 7 Marquette, and Marquette won the game 86-75. Yet St. John's led by 9 at the half. A lot of craziness thought was happening, but it was just Tyler Kolek just going off. 27 points, 7 rebounds, 13 assists. He might be the best passer in college basketball. I feel confident saying that he is the best college basketball passer in the nation. He was 11 of 17 shooting, 5 of 8 from 3. This win streak that they're on is because of him. He's back in shape. He was hurt for a while, and everyone just started saying it doesn't even look like he's hurt. Then after that, he started fading a little bit. He scored 0 points in what game was that? A couple weeks ago, he scored 0 points. He had like 13 assists or something. But now he's scoring the ball well and dishing it off. And this team is back. They're playing well. They're now up to 4 in the AP poll, and they're rolling. They're a great team. Again, we got just a few games we'll go through quickly. We just got to know Providence went to Butler, and Butler beat them 75-72. This is just a big game for the bubble. Thad Matta's squad picks up a big win there. Number 1 team in the nation, UConn, went to Georgetown and just dominated Ed Cooley's team 89-64. This was important because Alex Caravan's first game coming back, he had 25 points. He led UConn right back on track. Seton Hall visited Villanova. Villanova beat up on them 80-54. Seton Hall starting to fade a little bit. They're down to 8-5, tied for 3rd in the Big East. Remember when they had that lead tied with UConn for a while? What I thought from this game is this shows Villanova can be really good. They got no production from Justin Moore in this game, and they still beat Seton Hall by 26. This team can be really good if they put all the pieces together. They're a team you might want to watch out for. So let's talk about the Big East standings, where this leads us. UConn is in control of this conference at 12-1. Second is Marquette at 9-3. Creighton and Seton Hall are tied for 3rd at 8-5. In 5th place, Xavier and Butler, 7-6. Right behind them is St. John's, Villanova, Providence, all sub 500 at 6-7. This is probably the bubbliest conference in the nation, I would say. Seton Hall, Xavier, Butler, St. John's, Villanova, Providence, all on the bubble. We'll see how they do going forward. UConn is a 1 seed. This our second 1 seed behind Purdue as of now. Marquette we have as a 2 seed. Creighton right around that 4 through 6 range, I would say. Then everyone else is on the bubble. It's a very fun conference to pay attention to. So the game we're going to spend the most time talking about was out of the SEC. We're probably going to talk about the SEC more than any of them because we saw their probably 3 best teams all take a fall. Gonzaga visited number 17 Kentucky and beat them 89-85. This is Kentucky's 3rd loss in a row at home. It was just Gonzaga from the start. Reed Shepherd, supposed to be a top 5 pick. He did nothing in the first half, but ended up having 21 points in the second half. It's a great win for Gonzaga. We'll talk about Gonzaga here in a second, but we're going to talk about Kentucky first because 3 losses in a row at Rupp is very uncharacteristic. So Reed Shepherd, 21 points in the second half. Reed Shepherd is great, but we have to talk about Rob Dillingham. He's kind of stepped into that Devin Booker role where this guy's got all the talent in the world, yet he's coming off the bench. Remember, Devin Booker was playing behind the Harrison twins. Rob Dillingham he's been coming off the bench, but he's been playing a ton of minutes and is their second leading scorer. But he plays 23 minutes and he averages 15 points a game. He's a gifted scorer. Let's talk about his last 3 games against Florida 3 games ago. played 39 minutes, 20 points, 8 of 17 shooting, 3 of 8 from 3. Against Tennessee, 27 minutes, where he was in foul trouble, so he only played 27 minutes. And still in 27 minutes, he had 35 points, 14 of 20 shooting, 6 of 8 from 3. That's against Tennessee, known for their elite defensive ability. Against Vanderbilt, yes, Vanderbilt is bad. He still scored 20 points in 30 minutes, 7 of 12 shooting, 4 of 5 for 3. This guy is a gifted scorer. So what did he do against Gonzaga? 18 minutes, 6 points, 2 of 3 from 3, only played 4 minutes in the second half. Bear in mind, this is without one of their starters, Trey Mitchell. Trey Mitchell did not play in this game. Justin Edwards played 29 minutes and Rob Dillingham played 18. Why in God's name is Justin Edwards playing 29 minutes and Rob Dillingham is playing 18? There has to be some reasoning for this. There has to be something going on in the Kentucky program. Dillingham is their best pure scorer. Antonio Reeves leads the team in scoring, but he plays a lot more minutes than Dillingham. He has the most points scored per minute on Kentucky. He's shooting 44% from 3. He's going to be a top 5 draft pick. Why is he not in this basketball game? Not sure. Calipari's gotten a lot of hate on this. He's, quite frankly, if you've been involved on Twitter or anywhere, a lot of Kentucky fans are calling for his head. I wouldn't go that far. He is the best recruiter we've ever seen in college basketball, but it's got to be an internal issue there, I would think. That has to be the only reasoning. I know he's not the greatest defender, but he is your most gifted scorer. Luka Doncic isn't the greatest defender, and why would you ever not play him? Interesting stuff going on in Kentucky. They lost this game to Gonzaga. Gonzaga is not very good this year, unfortunately. I don't think Kentucky's there yet either. They have all the talent in the world, but they're not there. I mean, Gonzaga, we saw Gonzaga lose a home game to St. Mary's. They almost lost a home game to San Francisco. It's all right for Mark Few to have a bad year. He hasn't had a bad year. This team's just not as talented as former Mark Few teams. But this at least got Gonzaga back in the chant and gave them a chance for an at-large bid. They're still on the outside looking in and by a reasonable amount. But this was their first quad one win. They'll have 2 more opportunities at San Francisco and at St. Mary's. I don't think they're going to win at St. Mary's. I just don't see that happening. At San Francisco, maybe. I think St. Mary's is just more talented than them, but it gives them a glimmer of hope at least. I would love to see Mark Few's tournament streak continue. Maybe they can squeeze one out. St. Mary's is kind of trending towards an at-large bid. So maybe Gonzaga will have more to play for in the WCC tournament than St. Mary's, but I would obviously love to see Mark Few's streak continue. Graham Ike, he led Gonzaga, 23 points, 10 of 17 shooting. They got hope. We'll see. Let's move on. Number 6, Tennessee visited Texas A&M. Texas A&M beat up on them from the beginning, 85-69. Wade Taylor and Tyrese Radford went off. We said on the last podcast that this could happen because they are such gifted scorers, but they can shoot you in games. They can shoot you out of games. They shot him in this game. Wade Taylor had 25 points. Tyrese Radford had 27. There's just no easy games in the SEC. Outside of probably Vanderbilt should be a win, but even we've seen teams struggle with Vanderbilt a little bit. A&M is a tournament team. They're kind of on the bubble, but they have the talent to be in the tournament. But the main concern for Texas A&M is Henry Coleman. Henry Coleman has been a key piece of this program for a while. He just continues to be a non-factor. He's coming off the bench. He must be hurt still. He's not scoring like he should be. He's a big athletic body. He needs to get a little bit better for this team to have a chance to make a run. They win 12, 14 straight SEC games last year. He was a big part of that. They're going to need him if they want to do something like that again this year. Let's move on to number 12, Auburn visiting Florida. Florida beat up on them from the get-go, 81-65. The game was not even this close. Florida led by 20 most of the game. Just kind of an Alabama hangover for Auburn. We kind of were worried about this. They were just outmatched from the beginning. Riley Kugel was the story for Florida. Coming off the bench, 22 points. He knocked down 3 threes. Big win for Florida. Florida, this might be the win that gets you in the tournament. They're now 2-7 in quad one, which isn't great. They haven't lost outside of quad one, which is very impressive. So Florida should be comfortably in the tournament. Team that Auburn just beat, Alabama, visited LSU. Alabama came in number 16. Alabama won 109-92. This Alabama team is so fun to watch. They're very similar to Kentucky. They just don't play defense, yet they just outscore everyone. Their offense, it may be one of the best offenses we've ever seen in college basketball. It is that good. They're number one at KenPom, obviously. They had 8 people score 5+, 5 people score 15+. Sears led with 23. This team is incredibly fun to watch. I encourage everyone to step in and watch an Alabama basketball game. If they played a little bit of defense, this team I think is actually better than Kentucky when they offensively, they're actually better than Kentucky, even though Kentucky has all that firepower. But their defense is even worse than Kentucky. But it's funny to watch. But hey, some things are working for them. They're currently first in the SEC, tied with South Carolina. They're both 9-2. Auburn is right behind them at 8-3. Tennessee right behind them at 7-3. And then following them is Texas A&M, Florida, and Kentucky, all 6-4. Very fun conference to pay attention to. South Carolina, Lamont Paris, shout out to them. They beat Vanderbilt, by the way. We're not going to talk about that because it's Vanderbilt. Moving into the Big Ten. Big Ten, a lot of teams taking losses. Number 11, Wisconsin, taking a lot of losses lately. Lost at Rutgers 78-56, 4 losses in a row for Wisconsin. This is kind of the most concerning of them all. Rutgers is not good, and to lose by 22. If you lose on the road, it's okay. Actually, all of their losses in this stretch have been on the road, except that one at home against Purdue, which is understandable, and that was actually a close game. I'm getting a lot of hate for having Wisconsin as a top 4 or 5 seed, but they are, quite frankly, still. I even had them as a lock. They are. They have 6 quad 1 wins. This is fifth in the nation. Fifth in the nation in quad 1 wins, 4 quad 2 wins. They have 10 Q1, Q2 wins. That is a ton. And they don't have any losses outside of quadrant 2. Even this Rutgers game is in quadrant 2. They're going to be in the tournament. They got to figure something out though before they get picked off first round. They are still probably a 5 seed right now, I would say. I think that's what I had them at going into last night. Yeah. Yeah, they're a 5 seed right now. So yikes, you don't want to play a 12 seed. You don't want to draw Grand Canyon. I would take Grand Canyon in a heartbeat over them right now. Let's move on. Number 10, Illinois visited Michigan State. Michigan State picked up the win. Number 10 team in the nation, Illinois was, excuse me. Michigan State won 88-80. Michigan State, 62.5% from 3 in this game. AJ Hoggard had 23. Malik Hall had 22. Tyson Walker had 19. Since the Baylor game, they've been the top 3-point shooting team in the country, is Michigan State. Remember, they kind of did the same thing last year. They couldn't make threes save their life, and then they got hot all of a sudden, and they made the Sweet 16. Terrence Shannon had 28 points for Illinois. He's coming back. He not a great shooting percentage, 7-19, but good win for Michigan State. This kind of solidifies that they're still a great team. Tom Izzo's going to be in March. We'll see if they can get that 7 seed and make another run like they did last year. All right, we got to talk about it. Indiana at number 2, Purdue. Purdue beat them 79-59. Said on the last podcast, Purdue was favored by 19 via KenPom. I said if Indiana couldn't cover 19 points in an in-state rivalry game. I mean, they're 19-point underdogs. The line ended up being like 16.5 or 17.5, depending on where you were, which is no, I mean, it's Indiana basketball. I said if they didn't cover 19 points, I would call Indiana myself and ask for Mike Woodson to be fired. Because, I mean, this is just embarrassing. I'm obviously not going to do that, but this is just an embarrassment of a season for Indiana. They're the 4th best team in the state of Indiana. That is ridiculous. It's the Indiana Hoosiers. They're behind Purdue, Indiana State, and Butler. They're all better basketball teams than Indiana is. Yet Indiana probably has the 2nd most talented roster on this. It's a coaching thing. I hated on them enough on the last podcast. If you're interested, go take a look. But I'm sick of even talking about this team. I'm not gonna give them any notoriety anymore. So where's this leave the standings? Purdue is in sole control. They're 11-2. Illinois is second, 8-4. Illinois might Purdue might win this conference by 3 or 4 games. It's incredible. Wisconsin and Northwestern are 8-5. They're in 3rd, and in 5th place, Michigan State 7-6. I think these are the top 5 teams in the conference. It's kind of cool to watch. I think Nebraska's kind of in that conversation. I'd probably put them right behind Michigan State. This Big Ten is kind of shaping out how we expected it to be. Move on to the ACC. We'll talk about this quickly. Number 3, North Carolina went to Miami. Kind of ended up being an interesting game. 75-72, North Carolina won. RJ Davis, 25 points, 5 threes. Armando Bacot had 10 points, 15 rebounds. They only had 1 bench point. Seth Trimble has been out, and he is a stud coming off the bench for North Carolina. It's really showing. Once they get him back in there, they'll start blowing out teams again. I fully believe it. He would start just about anywhere in the country except North Carolina. 1 through 5, they're so good. Moving on, Clemson beat Syracuse 77-68. Led by 13 at the half, but Syracuse actually fought back. But Joe Girard, congrats to Joe Girard. He scored his 2,000th point in this one. And it was pretty special. He did it at Syracuse, where he played for 4 years for Syracuse. Very cool stuff. He actually led Clemson. He had 18 points and very efficient from the field, 5 of 6 shooting, made a lot of free throws. PJ Hall, 15 points, 10 rebounds. Syracuse's chances are starting to fade a little bit. I like what I'm seeing in year one, but it's their chances are going down the drain. They're only going to have so many opportunities left. This was a good one here. Didn't happen. We'll see how they do going forward. Virginia visited Florida State and won 80-76. They've won 8 in a row. 8 in a row in the conference. They're scoring the ball better on the road. We talked a lot earlier in the year that this may be the worst road basketball team we've ever seen. Not anymore. They're going on the road and they're scoring 80 points. Tony Bennett is incredible. He just figures stuff out. Don't know why I ever doubted him. The duo of McNeely and Beekman combined for 50 points. McNeely had 29. Beekman had 21. This Virginia team is rolling right now. They're going to roll into, you might look up and they might end up being a 5 or 6 seed come March. We'll see. 8 wins in a row. Good for Tony Bennett. Boston College visited number 9 Duke, and Duke beat them 82-65. And then we'll move on where North Carolina State beat Wake Forest 83-79. Kind of a trap game, but this led us into Monday night's matchup where Wake Forest lost at number 9 Duke 77-69. Bad beat alert. We got a bad beat. Wake Forest plus 7.5. Obviously, Duke won the game by 8. This game was neck and neck the whole way. They should have never have not covered plus 7.5. They were down by 6, and Mark Mitchell got out on a fast break, and Wake Forest just refused to guard him with like 10 seconds left. He went in, made the dunk, put him up 8. Wake Forest still had time with the ball. They should have never have been down 8 in the first place, but they were. They got the ball, they got fouled, and then he missed the free throw. He missed the free throw right away. It went out of bounds. It seemed like no one even knew it was a 1-and-1. They had a chance to actually get that rebound, but no one knew it was a 1-and-1. Went out of bounds, and then they just ran the clock out. It was a bad beat for you, Wake Forest plus 7.5 bettors, which I think most of the money was on, but unfortunate loss there. Good win for Duke, though, holding off Wake Forest at home. Tyrese Proctor, though, 0 points. He's really struggled coming back from that injury, but sometimes you hear coaches say that injuries actually help their team get better, and this might be one of those cases. Mark Mitchell, Jared McCain, and obviously Filipowski, they've all stepped up and they've gotten a lot better with Tyrese Proctor out of the lineup. So once he's back and fully healthy, this team might be scary. This team might be one of those teams you don't want to see as a 3 or 4 seed come March, as that 4 seed that might knock off a 1 seed. So let's talk about the ACC standings right now. In first place, sole possession is North Carolina at 11-2. Second place, just a game back, Virginia and Duke 10-3. Very interesting going on in this conference. Wake Forest is still in 4th after that loss. They dropped to 8-5. Florida State 7-5. North Carolina State 7-6. Clemson and Pitt are both 6-6 with Syracuse and Miami right behind them at 6-7. Let's move on to the Pac-12. Pac-12 had some interesting matchups. Number 8, Arizona visiting Colorado was the biggest matchup. And Arizona went in there and just blitzed Colorado 99-79. Colorado was favored in this game for some reason, even though they got beat by 47 earlier in the year at Arizona. We talked about this on the last podcast. I said, please take Arizona, and I was actually right for once, we'll say. Arizona's just continuing their dominance. Omar Ballo had 16 points, 13 rebounds. Caleb Love led the game with 19 points, or led Arizona, with 19 points. Let's go off topic real quick. The FanDuel kick of destiny. If you picked no for Gronk to miss the kick, you have $25 and you're thinking, yeah, it's college basketball season, throw it on some. I would very advise throwing it on Arizona. I think Arizona has the best odds. They're plus 1,200, plus 1,300 even on some sites. I think 1,300 at FanDuel. Go check that out if you're interested in throwing it on a team with good odds. I mean, Purdue's plus like 700, probably the best team. They're I would say right now for sure. But Arizona, I think, has the best odds for a team that is they're a team to beat come March. Maybe consider throwing it on Arizona at plus 1,300. That's all I'm gonna say. Let's move on to Washington State. Let's give Washington State some love. They went to Oregon in the trees and beat them 62-56. Kyle Smith, shout out Kyle Smith. He has done an incredible job at Washington State. Miles Rice led with 21 points. Washington State should be everyone's favorite team. Let's talk about the Miles Rice story real quick. Washington State, well, first off, Washington State just coming from nothing to, they're probably a 7 or 8 seed right now. They're that good. They have a great resume. But speaking of Miles Rice, for those who don't know, he graduated high school 3 years ago, but he's actually a freshman, current or technically a freshman right now, because he had a medically redshirt with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Great story there for Miles Rice coming back and leading this Washington State team to a great season. He's been playing great basketball all year. He's put this Washington State team on the map coming back from Hodgkin's lymphoma. Incredible, an absolute role model is Miles Rice. Great stuff going on there. I'm rooting for this Washington State team. But let's move on to a surprising result. Arizona State, a bad Arizona State team this year, may I mention, visited Utah and beat them 85-77. Utah is really starting to fade. They're moving towards the bubble. I've said it a million times. A ton of people were like, yeah, this Utah team is going to be a team to beat come March. They're not good. They're just not good at all. They had a pretty good resume earlier in the year, which is why I think people are saying this, but they're just not good. This team's not that talented. I quite frankly don't think they're going to end up being in March. They might be a first four team. If they somehow sneak out a 10 seed, I'm taking the 7 seed, no matter who it is. I don't think this team is that good. We got to give some love to UCLA. We have hated on UCLA all year. They're starting to sneakily win some games. They went into Cal and beat them by 61-60. Hated on Mick Cronin a lot. UCLA's 8-5 in the conference right now. They're in third place. They're in third place in the Pac-12 right now. Hated a lot on Mick Cronin. He's done a good job. He's done a good job to rebound this team. He's taken a lot of heat for not showing up to press conferences. Not just doesn't look good out there, but they're starting to win games. Good for them. Good for UCLA. Not good for USC. USC went to Stanford and got beat by 31, 99-68. USC was a lot of people's pick to win the league this year. They lost by 31. I know there's no Isaiah Collier, but oh man, this team is horrible. Horrible. They're the worst team in the Pac-12 by kind of a long shot, too. It's ugly. Let's go over their standings. Arizona, excuse me, not Arizona State. Yikes. Arizona 10-3. They're in first. Only a game behind Washington State, 9-4. UCLA, as we mentioned, and Oregon are also 8-5. Then behind them is Colorado and Stanford at 7-6. Utah is 6-7 in the Pac-12. That, quite frankly, why I don't think this team is that good. We'll see if they end up in March. But Colorado was actually my pick to come in second, and they're 7-6 right now. They're kind of fading a little bit. They probably got two guys who are first round draft picks, and they're 7-6. Kind of ugly over there. But let's move on to the Mountain West, which we love talking about. UNLV, that sneaky little team, went into the pit at number 25, New Mexico, and beat them 80-77. New Mexico had a shot at the end to tie it. No, UNLV is one of those teams where you still have to play them, and you're like, yikes, they're not that high at the net. It's not a high quadrant win or loss, but they're good enough to knock you off, and that's exactly what they did against New Mexico. New Mexico is really fading as of late. I told some people they were my sleeper for this year, and as soon as I say that, they start fading heavily. So good win for UNLV. New Mexico's got to get their stuff figured out. Boise State went into Utah State and got drilled 61-80. Number 22 Utah State blew them out by 19. Utah State had coming off 2 straight losses, but they rebound, gain control of the league. They're now in first place at 8-3, right in front of 4 teams all looking to come back. Colorado State, Boise State, New Mexico, San Diego State are all 7-4. Right behind them is Nevada and UNLV at 6-4. Nevada is rolling right now, by the way. They got a good chance coming up, which we'll talk about here in a second. We talked about the A10, so we just got to talk about them real quick. They lost. Dayton lost at VCU on Friday. We talked about that on Saturday's show, but let's just take a look at the standings real quick. Richmond is in first, 9-1. They got a chance of an at-large bid as well. They have some serious firepower going over there. We saw them beat Dayton. Dayton and Loyola Chicago, 9-2. Loyola Chicago flying under the radar this year. Shout out Sister Jean, 9-2. They've had a great year, but Dayton will be in March. I'm fully expecting it. Richmond making a case. best thing for the A10 would probably be Richmond making all the way to the finals, and maybe Loyola Chicago somehow went. They could have 3 bids. Next thing you know, you look up and the A10's got 3 bids. You never know. Let's move on to the American Athletic Conference. Just 2 games to talk about. The 2 teams we love talking about, FAU and Memphis. We'll talk about both of their games. On Sunday, FAU avoided disaster at Wichita State, coming off that loss at UAB, which isn't as bad as you think. It's quad 2 loss, but Florida Atlantic made it to overtime with Wichita State, but they did beat them by 13 in overtime, 95-82. Sorry for those who had Wichita State plus 7.5, because this game was close the whole way until overtime. They outscored them 21-8 in overtime. Yikes. Let's move on. Tulane visited Memphis, and Memphis beat them 90-78. Remember, Tulane beat them earlier in the year. Memphis finally starting to get a little bit back on track. They were 4-4 in the conference. They're now 7-4. They've won 3 in a row. So where does this lead our conference? USF 10-1. They're still in first. Amir Abdul Rahim doing a great job over there. I've gotten a lot of questions on, is USF a at-large consideration? They are not. They're not right now. I think they're still sub 100 or above. They're in the 100s at the net. They're not there yet, but they're winning games. Maybe the net's screwing them a little bit. They're 10-1 in the conference. Doing something FAU can't do, who's 9-2. Charlotte is also 9-2. Right behind them is SMU and UAB at 8-3. Memphis behind them at 7-4. SMU, another one of those teams. Maybe look out for. They're loved by the computers. They're loved at the net. That's all the games we got to talk about. Let's move into our rankings, which we promised we were going to talk about. We're actually going to pull it up on the screen here for you so you can take a look and go on with us. Now, bear in mind that these rankings were before last night's game. So we still have Kansas at 7, which they will obviously drop. They'll probably drop to 11 or 12. We do our rankings based on resume, and we do our rankings based on seed lining. So we kind of like as of right now, like the 2 seeds, North Carolina, Marquette, Kansas, Tennessee. Tennessee would actually probably be the first 2 seed, but I do have them as 8th because they've been fading a little bit. And I also do put a little bit of head-to-head matchup in if it's a deciding factor, but not really. That's not the most important part. But as you see, we do have Purdue number 1, UConn number 2, Houston number 3. Those are the top 3 teams in the nation. I think you can even throw Arizona, that they're the 4th best team in the nation right now. North Carolina at 5. North Carolina actually dropped to 7 in the AP poll. Iowa State cracked our top 10. What we want to talk about is down towards the bottom here. Virginia up to 22 in our rankings. St. Mary's 21. We did have to drop Wisconsin all the way to 20. Indiana State in our top 25. They're up at 23, along with Washington State, Miles Rice, Kyle Smith. They're at 24. We did move Creighton back up. We had Creighton all the way down to 30, but we have them up to 25 right now. Florida Atlantic, this is one of those teams I don't know what to do with. I'm holding them on at 26. I mean, I just said that Arizona is without a doubt the 4. They beat Arizona, yet they're almost losing to Wichita State, which is not a Ron Baker, Fred VanVleet Wichita State. It's a sub 500 Wichita State. Did keep Oklahoma. They're at 29, and Kentucky is at 30. And the more I think about it, the more generous it may be. Kentucky is not yet on the bubble, but they're a little closer than you think. Strongly considered Clemson, Florida, Northwestern, and then kind of considered was just New Mexico, TCU, Texas, Nevada. Got a lot of questions on Nevada, whether Nevada should be ranked or not. Not yet. They're beating teams. Their resume doesn't compare. Seed line doesn't compare. They're probably in 9 seed right now. So they're getting there, but not all the way. So that's it for our rankings. Let's dive into what the AP poll thinks about it on which came out yesterday. UConn is still number 1, Purdue number 2. They're the 2 best teams in the nation. Houston is 3. As we said, they moved Marquette up to 4. Didn't think they'd move them all the way up there. I thought it might be Arizona all the way up to 4, but no. They also moved Iowa State into the top 10 at 10. Our rankings actually very similar. Our top 10 is the same as the top 10 of the AP poll, just in different orders. South Carolina is all the way up to 11. Incredible stuff for them. But let's talk about down towards the list. Dayton is up to 16 after losing to VCU. Yeah, yes, I'm not even going to hate on it because there were a lot of action happened around that number. So teams are moving in, teams are moving out. But St. Mary's, good to see St. Mary's back in the rankings. They're 18th in the nation. Wisconsin dropped all the way to 20th in the AP poll, 20th in our poll, so kind of similar. Virginia's up to 21. They do have Kentucky ranked 22nd. They should not be ranked. I can't believe they're ranked. And Florida Atlantic is 24th. I have them at 26th, and I feel as generous as I should be for Florida Atlantic. I think they should be out of the top 25 for sure, but definitely Kentucky. Kentucky should not be ranked whatsoever. Shout out Indiana State. Indiana State is new in the AP poll for the first time since 1979. Incredible, incredible stuff. Robbie Avila, they got some good things going on over there. Oklahoma closes it out at 25th. AP poll just came out. Go take a look. We retweeted it on our Twitter if you want to go take a look. Post our rankings every day on our Instagram and our Twitter, so go check those out as well. Bracket Science, 2 S's. Let's move on. Games to watch. Sweet 16. We always talk about 16 games that we want to pay attention to. We'll give the KenPom lines here. Starting on Tuesday tonight. Check this out. Number 4, Marquette visits Butler at 6:30. This game's on FS1. Marquette favored by 3 via KenPom. Should be a fun matchup. Butler is rolling right now, but Marquette may be the hottest team in the nation. I think Marquette goes in and beats them, quite frankly. At 7 o'clock, number 7 now, North Carolina visits Syracuse on ESPN. First game of Super Tuesday. North Carolina favored by 8 via KenPom. Syracuse needs this team bad, needs this game bad, and against this team, I guess. This is their opportunity to get back in the conversation. I think Syracuse covers the 8. See if Seth Trimble is playing or not. If Seth Trimble is not playing, definitely take Syracuse with the 8. We'll see. They got a big chance here. They need it a lot more than North Carolina needs it. Although North Carolina kind of needs it to maintain that position at the top of the ACC. So that'll be an interesting matchup. At 7 o'clock, number 10, Iowa State visits Cincinnati on ESPN2. Iowa State favored by 1. Tough stretch for Cincinnati. Had to host Houston, now have to host Iowa State. At least they get them at home. I think Cincinnati wins this game. I think an unranked opponent takes down Iowa State. I think Iowa State is great. I just think I saw Cincinnati do better than I expected against Houston's defense, and I think Iowa State's in that same boat, yet Iowa State is not as good offensively. I'll take Cincinnati to win this game. At 7 o'clock, St. John's at Providence. Providence favored by 1. This game's on the CBS Sports Network. Got a great slate on the CBS Sports Network today, by the way. Talk about those Mountain West games later. But first, let's talk about St. John's and Providence. St. John's really struggling right now. Providence just came off that loss at Butler. Both teams need a win. Both teams near the bubble. St. John's kind of moving off of that bubble in the wrong direction. Providence still right there. I think Providence wins the game. I think Devin Carter leads them to a victory. Game's on CBS Sports Network if you want to check it out. Our only ranked matchup tonight at 9 o'clock. Number 25, Oklahoma visits number 12, Baylor. This game's on ESPN. Baylor favored by 5 via KenPom. Like what I saw from Baylor against Kansas, but Baylor refuses to play a blowout game. Yet these teams match up very well. This is a game I would stay away from if that line is 5. If it's 3.5, I'd probably take Baylor. If it's 7.5, I'd probably take Oklahoma. We'll see how that goes, but I think Baylor does win the game, but we'll see. Ohio State, the fading Ohio State at number 20, Wisconsin. This game's on Peacock. Both teams, probably the coldest teams in the nation right now. Wisconsin lost 4 in a row. Ohio State did just beat Maryland, but they had lost like 7 of 8 before that, or 8 of 9, something like that. Wisconsin's favored by 9. This game's on Peacock. Oh, man. I would not bet this game. Whoever it is, do not bet this game. I mean, both teams are just trailing in the wrong direction. Had to throw it in here, though. Wisconsin has a chance to rebound. 9 points kind of feels like a lot. I'd probably take Ohio State to cover 9, but I would stay away from this one 100%. We'll see what that line is when it comes out on FanDuel. Also at 9 o'clock, the second game of Super Tuesday on ESPN. Ole Miss visits number 22, Kentucky. Kentucky favored by 7. Betting lines are rough today. I would advise just, relaxing, moving into college basketball season with just enjoying some games. Don't bet on some of these games unless you really feel more confident than I do, because 7 points for a struggling Kentucky team. Talking about a lot of teams that are struggling, not a lot of teams that are trending in the right direction. Kentucky -7. Ole Miss, they kind of need a win for their bubble, but Kentucky's lost 3 in a row at home. I don't think I see them losing 4 in a row. Ole Miss isn't that talented, yet they are extremely well coached. And they're more talented than you may think, but no thanks. I'm staying away from that one. Give me Ole Miss +7 just for the heck of it. 9 o'clock, Colorado State at San Diego State. This game's on CBS Sports Network. The second game on CBS Sports Network. San Diego State favored by 5 via KenPom. I think I'll take San Diego State to cover the 5. They've kind of been losing a little bit lately. I think they need this win bad. I just think it's the San Diego State. At San Diego State, they want to maintain their position as the top of the conference against the Colorado State, who's kind of one of those new teams leaning into stardom in that conference. I'll take San Diego State. Third game on CBS Sports Network, 11 o'clock, triple header. Keep CBS Sports Network on your TV tonight. New Mexico visits Nevada. Nevada favored by 1 via KenPom. Give me Nevada. Nevada is blazing hot right now, and New Mexico has really been struggling lately. I'll take Nevada to win this game and get back in the conversation as one of the top teams in the Mountain West. So we're going to talk about on Tuesday. Let's move into Wednesday. Tuesday is the highlighted night. A lot more games on Tuesday. Tomorrow night, I think we do have the best game, which we'll get into in a second, though. But first, we'll talk about Miami visiting Clemson. Clemson favored by 8 via KenPom. This game's at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Clemson, they figured their stuff out. Miami has not. Clemson did lose at Miami earlier in the year. With that being said, I think I'll take Miami to cover the 8 in this game. Miami actually beat them by 13 at home, a 21-point swing. I don't know if I see that much. I'll take Miami to win the game. Not win the game, excuse me, to cover 8. I think Clemson wins the game, but Miami covers the 8. At 7 o'clock, Xavier visits Seton Hall. Must-win game for both teams. Must win for both teams. And guess what? It's on CBS Sports Network. Shout out CBS Sports Network. Xavier's favored by 1 via KenPom. I think I'll take Xavier to win this game. I think they're playing better than Seton Hall right now. It is at Seton Hall. Seton Hall's been struggling. They're not a hot team anymore. Xavier has been rolling. Other than that loss against Creighton, which it's Creighton. They're so talented. I'll take Xavier to win this game, but it is a must win for both teams. At 8:30, the game we said is our most interesting game to watch. Number 11, South Carolina at number 13, Auburn. Top 13 matchup. This game's on the SEC network. Auburn favored by 10 via KenPom. We know their metrics are very high at all those predictives. This is just a fun watch. That's all I'm gonna say. It'll be a fun watch. 10 points. Yikes. That's a lot of points to give a number 11 team in the nation. I think I'll take South Carolina to cover 10 because that is a lot of points yet. I'm not too I love South Carolina and what they're doing. Talent level doesn't really match up with Auburn yet. I'm not as high on Auburn as a lot of people are. So we'll see. 10 points feels like a lot. I bet it'll be more like 7.5, 8.5. And if it's 7.5, 8.5, I'd probably take Auburn, unfortunately. At 9 o'clock, number 8, Tennessee visits Arkansas on ESPN2 at Bud Walton. Tennessee coming off that loss, Arkansas coming off a lot of losses this year, although they did just beat Georgia. So good for them. They beat Georgia at home. They're horrible. Eric Musselman's team is just not good this year. Tennessee favored by 11, though, on the road. Give me Arkansas plus the 11. At 9 o'clock, West Carolina visits Samford. We got to give some love to the SoCon. Samford favored by 8 via KenPom. This game's on ESPNU. Good for ESPNU for getting this game. Interesting matchup here. We spent a lot of time on previous podcasts talking about Samford and how much offensive firepower they have. I think I'll take Samford to cover the 8 in this game. I think they are just they need it. I'll take Samford. We're going to talk about one game each on Thursday and Friday. On Thursday, Colorado at UCLA. Yes, UCLA. Good enough. We made it back. But more so because Colorado needs this win desperately bad. This game is on ESPN at 9 o'clock on Thursday. Colorado's favored by 2 via KenPom, and Colorado needs this win about as bad as I've ever seen. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm taking UCLA. UCLA is rolling right now. They've been playing well. Mick Cronin's got them sort of believing again. They're not going to be in the NCAA tournament unless they win the Pac-12 tournament. Colorado got all the talent in the world. I'm just not too bought in on them playing together. I'm taking UCLA. Can't believe I'm saying it. Friday, 10 o'clock, last game we're going to talk about. New Mexico visits San Diego State. San Diego State favored by 3. This game's on FS1. Pay attention to how New Mexico fares in their game on where they play Tuesday, along with San Diego State to kind of see where teams are trending. So right now, I'd probably take San Diego State to win the game and cover the 3. That's it. That's our Sweet 16. Those are all the KenPom lines. Hopefully, you got a little bit of a feel of what the lines might be, where you want to lean in your betting. Let's talk about our Trivia Tuesday answer. If you remember the question, let me scroll back up. What was the question? I can't remember. No, it had something to do with 22 plus wins. There are 7 teams have reached 22 wins this year. Can you name them? Only 2 power conference teams Think about it. Give you a second to think about it. I'll give you the two power conference teams. They're the two best teams in the country, UConn and Purdue. They're both 22-2. There is one mid-major that is also 22-2, and that is Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon, absolutely rolling. There are four teams that are 22-3. Indiana State, James Madison, Samford, and McNeese. McNeese just picked up that win. Will Wade squad. McNeese, the final team, 22-3. Great records for all these teams. I would love to see all these teams in the tournament, yet the metrics, of course, will lean more towards a Villanova who's like 13-11 on the year, instead of a team like a James Madison or a McNeese at an at-large bid. Love to see things change, but those are the 7 teams. That's going to wrap up our show today. Hopefully everyone enjoyed. Be sure to check out our rankings. Be sure to check out our Instagram and Twitter at Bracket Science 2S's. If you prefer to use Facebook, we're also on Facebook, Bracket Science. Before I lose you, please smash that like button. We really appreciate it. Still looking for a co-host. Anyone, reach out to DMs. Gotten a few DMs. I would love to hear from everyone. We love to hear everyone in every aspect. Comment on our Instagram, comment on our Twitter, comment on our Facebook, comment under this YouTube video. We love hearing, interacting with everyone. The college basketball community is great. We really appreciate everyone. That's it. Everyone have a great rest of their week. We'll be back on Saturday to preview some of the weekend matchups. But until then, see you later.